and the hat I'm wearing, to our Sounders. And um, it's funny because there's so many similar themes week by week with the Sounders. It's positive because they clinched their playoff spot in the 2023 MLS Cup. MLS Cup playoffs, MLS playoffs in the playoffs. But their next match, which would have helped them move higher in the seeding, help them with seeding as we enter the decision day this upcoming week, they split the points. So, firstly, the match that helped them clinch their playoff spot, October 4th versus the LA Galaxy, a 2-1 win. Our player of the match, midfielder João Paulo, an 8.6 match rating, 1 assist, and 86% passing percentage, 3 chances created, 1 big chance created, and 1 shot. Our photo of the match is by our photographer, Liz Wolter. You can just kind of see there's a story here, right? Los Angeles Galaxy goalkeeper Jonathan Bond sits there in the foreground with the ball after midfielder Christian Roldan, who is I think he's technically in the photo, but he's covered up by Reed Baker Whiting on the right-hand side of the photo, celebrates the game-winning goal at the death in the 96th minute, which helped Seattle clinch their playoff berth. I believe it would have been clinched due to the LAFC result at this earlier in the match that ended. But Seattle just outright with their own win clinched their playoff spot, gets them back on track after missing last year and snapping the historic streak. And we'll talk about it, but Seattle can be dangerous in these playoffs. So that was a positive. You're coming off of a winner in the 96th minute. You say, wow, Christian Roldan gets back on how big he's been for this Sounders team this season, this past season, last season, in the beginning of the year, playing like an MVP candidate, then kind of deals with stuff throughout the course of the year. This year, obviously dealing with the concussion symptoms, and he scores that winner there. We go over to the Vancouver Whitecaps, who have already secured the Cascadia Cup this year, unfortunately. They've had a solid year. They've had a solid attack. They come into Seattle. The Sounders are looking to take a win here. If they would have moved up in the standings. That would have helped their own seeding for when the playoffs come around. Instead, the teams play to a scoreless draw, and they split the points. And everybody kind of feels like João Paulo here in this photo of the match by Matthew Bermudez, because Seattle really dominated this match in terms of the statistics. Seattle had 17 shots in total. Vancouver had 4 shots in total in this match by the Whitecaps, who have had a strong offensive year in 2023, and none of them were on target. So Seattle was really able to shut down Vancouver, and they weren't able to make it count. Our player of the match, defender Nuhu, and it makes sense, I guess, that one of the backline members gets the player of the match honors. An 8.1 match rating, 84% passing percentage, 1 chance created, 2 shots, a 14 passes into the final third, which is huge. Well, let me finish his stats. 2 tackles, 1, 3 clearances, 2 interceptions, and 12 recoveries on the night. That stat line really showed what Nuhu brings to this club, whether it be his defensive efforts with the clearances, interceptions, and recoveries, or, his attacking ability as well with the passing percentage, the chance created, the shots, and the 14, I'll say it again, 14 passes into the final third. So, yeah, I mean, before I get to talking about why the Sounders team can be good in the playoffs, I mean, just looking at these 2 matches, it was fresh. The goal that they allowed against the Galaxy was frustrating because it was a lot like what we've seen from the Sounders over the course of the year. A defensive lapse leaves an opposing player open to get a free run of sorts and equalize. But then Christian Roldan comes through and scores the winner. That match against the Galaxy felt more like the Seattle Sounders that we were used to. Just the energy in the building was better. The energy from the team was better. This match against the Whitecaps, not as much. It kind of felt like the Sounders of this year and the second half of last season was kind of like drudging along. They didn't have the killer instinct. They didn't have the bite on the attack. At the end of the Vancouver match, though, the Sounders put on a heavy press, heavy pressure, heavy attack. But Whitecaps goalkeeper the Whitecaps goalkeeper, I apologize, I don't want to butcher the name, so I'm not going to say it. had some excellent saves to deny Seattle. So it wasn't all necessarily on the Sounders' fault, but they certainly should have scored from one of the chances that they created. Um, why the Sounders can be a dangerous team in the playoffs. I mean, you look at the defensive effort throughout the course of the year. Seattle is tied for the first most, tied atop the league for the most clean sheets throughout the course of this year, and they have the most clean sheets at home this season amongst all of MLS. They're going to have at least one playoff match at home, considering where they're going to be seated. Um, so defensively, you're set. As long as you're able to clean up the mental lapses, this defense, this back line, and goalkeeper Stephen Fry will keep you in the match. It's the offense. And even in that regard, it's not all of the offense's issue. The offense has been able to generate chances. They're going to work on set pieces as they get towards the playoff because set pieces play a big role in the playoffs. Um, but it's their finishing. It's the one thing. If you were able to change the fortune of the finishing of this club this year, they probably have the West locked up already. They probably have the top seed. I can't say they'd be better than Cincinnati, necessarily. I mean, but there's just so many matches this season where the finishing for Seattle result just because of how bad it was resulted in a draw or even a loss because they weren't able to keep up. So I think if they're able to find that bite, if they're able to make that one last push with a bunch of guys who, many of who are going to be without a contract this offseason, they're able to make that push and make this matter. They can make a deep run. I truly believe that because of their defensive, how strong that defense is. I truly believe that, but they have to turn that finishing around. So we'll see. Um, Looking ahead. Oh, well, we'll look at the availability report. In both matches, Sota Kitahara remains out with a left quad strain. Cody Baker was questionable for the match against the Galaxy with with concussion protocols. And in both of the matches, Raul Diaz was questionable with back pain, but he was not available for selection in either of them. So it's not necessarily unlikely that we don't see Raul in the rest of the regular season. He wasn't training before the Whitecaps match, but he wasn't available for selection in that match. So um, on October 5th, Christian Roldan and João Paulo were named to the MLS Team of the Week match day. Roldan was in the starting 11 with an 8.2 match rating, 1 goal, 82% passing, 1 chance created, and 2 shots. And obviously the game-winning goal at the death, as I mentioned. And then João Paulo, we already read his stats. He was on the Team of the Match Day bench. I thought he should have been higher, but hey. Looking ahead, the Sounders sit at a 13-win, 9-loss, 11-draw record, resulting in 50 points. They're 1 point behind LAFC for the second seed in the West. They sit at 9th in the entirety of the MLS, 3rd in the Western Conference. Looking ahead, their next match, October 21st at St. Louis SC. That's a 6 p.m. Pacific time kickoff. That match will be, this one's interesting because, as I kind of mentioned, this St. Louis already has the top seed in the Western Conference locked up. So Seattle can only move as high as a second seed. It's possible that they can get that second seed, but they will need some help. LAFC, as I mentioned, is sitting in the second spot, just a point above Seattle. The Houston Dynamo in 4th are 2 points behind Seattle, and those same Vancouver Whitecaps that the Sounders just played are 3 points behind the Sounders. So a win or a draw is imperative to that moving forward. So we will now take the time to switch over here. Give me 1 second.